Good morning, my family who loves me.
Not the mama.
All right, that ends right now. I have had it up to here with this not the mama. I am not the mama. I'm your daddy. And you only get one, Buster. And that is what you're going to call me. Say da.
Da.
Say dee.
Dee.
Daddy.
Daddy.
He loves me. Listen to him.
Daddy, daddy. Daddy, 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 daddy. Not the mama.
Hey all you cool cats and kittens, it's Hot Toddy, and welcome to another special TV edition of Get Real. I love the TV editions because this means that we usually look back on the TV shows that shaped my youth and or early adulthood, and that's exactly what we're doing on this particular episode. We are going to talk about the hit ABC show from when I was a little child, from 1991 to 1994, Dinosaurs, one of the really most clever sitcoms to ever be on television, and I feel as though even in 2025, it is highly underrated. It did not get the love. I mean, it got a lot of love.
What?
But it still doesn't get the love that it deserves. 30 years later, I feel like that it still needs that little boost. Every so often, that little punch in the gut that says, hey, not only did this show exist, it was a damn good show. And that's what we're going to do here on this TV edition of Get Real. Of course, I'm an uber fan of the show. If you haven't figured it out, I'm wearing a little pin here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's Baby Sinclair, not the mama, of course, right? Classic line. And then here I have my official Dinosaurs action figures. I've had these since I was a kid, and I absolutely love them, and I've kept them all these years, and so now here they are with us in this episode. So you could say that I'm a big fan of this show, always have been, always will be. I think it was an incredible television show, not just for children, but I mean it was a great show really for everybody, because it was one of those shows that everybody could get something out of it, whether it be, you know, the kids can enjoy the crazy looking dinosaurs while the adults, you know, got the adult humor, or it was the fact that it was a show that had a message pretty much for everybody, and everyone really should have paid attention, but they didn't always. And that's what we're going to get into with talking about this particular show.
Surprise, motherfucker!
But this show was dreamed up by the great visionary that we lost way too soon, the one and only Jim Henson. This is one of his last brainchilds that he had right before he passed away. This was something he was trying to get off the ground since like the late 80s, I think 88 or something like that. And everyone kind of laughed at him because it just seemed like an absurd concept. The idea of basically a sitcom about a family. Of course, you know, family sitcoms were all the rage back in the 80s and 90s, but the idea that it would take place during the prehistoric era and it would be centered around a dinosaur family with them being sentient in a way like they were functioning like regular people, and to have them do everyday things. It just seemed like a silly idea. Nothing like that had ever happened before, especially in live action. So he was kind of laughed all the way out of the building until the next year, in 1989, when a hilarious new show premiered on the new Fox network. And all of a sudden, a show about a crazy family doing crazy things, going through a crazy life, didn't seem so crazy anymore.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So they got to work on it. However, Jim Henson unfortunately did not get to see the finished result as he passed away in 1990. But the Jim Henson Corporation and Walt Disney Company forged on and created this gem of a sitcom, Dinosaurs.
Well, Lottie frickin' God!
Now the question was, how are they going to do this? Were they going to be like regular puppets, like on Sesame Street and the Muppets? Were they going to be people in like the costumes and they were bumbling around, you know, like Sweetums, you know, from the Muppet Show, or Big Bird, you know? Or was it going to be more like an animatronic thing? Because animatronics were becoming really big at that point, especially at, you know, Disney World and Disneyland, as well as the new Universal Studios that had just opened around that time. So there was a lot more things you could do with technology and costumes. Well, they created the best of both worlds. They basically created animatronic costumes that were controlled by people off screen and at the same time were being walked around in by people on screen. It was actually very extremely high tech for its time because, the closest thing we had to that was like Sweetums on the Muppets or Big Bird on Sesame Street, Snuffleupagus, but even still, those were just regular puppets controlled by a puppeteer within the costume. This was a lot different. This was people inside of a costume. Well, all the mannerisms are being controlled off screen. It was something really interesting that had never really been done before. Leave it up to Jim Henson, of course, to make it happen. So it was really cool how they did it. And like I said, it was really ahead of its time, but very compelling for a television show. Of course, you had somebody in the suit, you had somebody off screen controlling the mannerisms, but the last thing had to be put into place, and that was who was going to voice these people, who was going to voice these characters. And they kind of went all out for a silly little sitcom, starring dinosaurs that was going to air in prime time on ABC for families to watch. They found some pretty notable people. The most notable person they got to have on the show was Sally Struthers, who was best known for playing Gloria on All in the Family, and she was chosen to voice Charlene, the daughter of the family. That's her right here. And that wasn't all. I mean, they also got Sherman Hemsley to play Mr. Richfield, Earl's boss. Speaking of Earl St. Clair, he was voiced by Stuart Pankin, who's been in a ton of different movies. He was in one of my all-time favorite movies, Arachnophobia. He played the comic relief sheriff in that movie, but he's been in a bunch of different things. The late, great Jessica Walter, who was Lucille Bluth on Arrested Development. She was also Archer's mom on Archer, and again, was just in countless productions throughout, the 70s, 80s, 90s, you name it, she was in something at some point. Now, someone who was on the show that was pretty cool at the time, but now we kind of look back on it, given the controversies that he's gone through over the last decade. It's kind of up to you how you view his presence on the show. It was Kevin Clash. Kevin Clash is famous for being the original voice and puppeteer of Elmo on Sesame Street. He was also the voice of Baby Sinclair on Dinosaurs. He, of course, had the famous line, "Not the mama."
Not the mama. Not the mama. Not the mama. Not the mama. Not the mama.
And Kevin Clash would go on to be a very prominent voice actor for the Jim Henson Company for many years after that, but of course he fell into some hot water in the early 2010s with some sexual abuse allegations. I think for the most part he got cleared from that. He was dismissed from the Jim Henson Company in 2013, I believe. So he's kind of a controversial figure. Again, it's one of those things, it's up and down in the courts. Some say it happened, some say it didn't, but regardless, he's kind of a controversial figure now for everything that he went through. But you can't dismiss the fact that he did play a prominent role in Dinosaurs, playing Baby Sinclair. Now, you may be wondering how a show like this could be so popular. I mean, because it does seem like a silly concept. Obviously, people my age, any millennial will tell you that it was one of their favorite shows as a kid growing up. Some of Gen X will probably say it was a fun show to watch. The Boomers will probably say it was a silly show. And fortunately, Gen Z, they never lived actually through it to see it. They may have caught the reruns on Disney Plus, but they weren't actually around to see it. And people ask, why was the show so popular? Well, in coordination with the fact that you had these funny-looking characters that the kids would enjoy watching, and it was a Jim Henson masterpiece, another Jim Henson masterpiece, it also dealt with a lot of topical issues that were topical both back then and today. Like, I went back and I rewatched the whole series in order to do this Get Real, and it was amazing how a lot of the topics that they were kind of harping on the show are still relevant to this day. One of the biggest things is like corporate greed and exploitation.
Why, this sudden cold snap is a godsend. Dinosaurs are flocking to stores buying We Say So heaters, We Say So blankets, and We Say So old-fashioned hot cocoa mix.
The main business that Earl works for and his boss, Mr. Richfield, played by Sherman Hemsley, they work for a group called the We Say So Corporation, which, I mean, it's perfect. It's even more perfect now than it was back then. That's just a perfect name for an evil corporation. Always prioritizing profits over people, or in this case, dinosaurs. It was very, very potent even back then, but today, it really sinks in even more.
We're going to have the best third quarter in history. Sir, I think this could be the last third quarter in history.
Another topic they tackle is environmental destruction. There's episodes about deforestation, species going extinct, and the big business doesn't care because they're going to do what they're going to do.
Are you guys really going extinct?
Any minute now. Yes.
Social issues like xenophobia, which is still very prominent today.
I'm asking Monica if she'll marry me so she won't have to leave the country.
It's disgusting. When a two-legger marries a four-legger, it's a crime against nature. Watch, you'll have kids with 3 legs.
Oh.
And the list goes on and on. They really sat there and tackled certain things, in a humorous way and in ways that that dinosaurs, if they were like humans, would have. And that's what made it so clever and so much fun. But they actually went into some extremely good points about what's happening on Earth and how bad, we can be as a society, and how if we're not careful, it could lead to the ultimate destruction, which leads me into the final episode of the show. No. I don't like to watch the final episode. I actually never watch it. I watched it once for the purpose of doing this episode, but I will never watch it again. I don't want to watch it because it's all about the extinction of the dinosaurs. And it's based around something that the We Say So Corporation did. Well, Earl did it on behalf of the We Say So Corporation.
Building that wax fruit factory on your mating ground was wrong. Oh, sure, wax fruit's important, but so are bunch beetles.
And it just completely irreversed any potential way of saving the planet, and eventually Earth falls into the Ice Age, which is what kills the dinosaurs. And so that's what the episode is about, is them getting stuck in their homes and just waiting inevitably for their deaths.
I'm sure it'll all work out okay. After all, dinosaurs have been on this Earth for 150 million years. And it's not like we're going to just disappear.
It ends on a question mark. It pans out of their house as snow is just falling on top of it, about to cover up the entire city, and that's what's going to kill the dinosaurs. So it's basically the last topic on the show is, if you're not careful, you could lose the Earth.
Daddy was put in charge of the world, and he didn't take real good care of it. And now it looks like there won't be much of a world left for you or your brother and sister to live in.
And if there has ever been a more prevalent topic that's been going on right now, it's climate change and trying to save the Earth from ourselves. And that's what the final episode of the show was about, was basically their way of saying, we're gone now. We've dealt with a lot of topics, we've dealt with a lot of issues, but we're going to leave you with this one last issue that actually hasn't happened yet. And if you're not careful, it will happen. And 30 years later, we're still not being careful. So it's a very, it's a very topical thing, obviously. And who knows what the future will hold? Who knows what we're doing with the planet, what it's going to do to the planet in the future. But what I loved about that episode, I hate that episode. I hate watching it, but I love it for what it stands for, because it's the finale of the show. And it's the most prominent episode, I believe, of the entire series, because it is the episode that says, watch out. Please take care of yourself. Please take care of the planet, because you never know what's going to happen next. And I just think that was brilliant that they went down that path. And so that is kind of my hot take about that episode, because if you ask people about it, they'll say that episode was horrible. That was the worst way to end that show. That wasn't a happy ending. You want a happy ending for your favorite characters. Well, we're our own favorite characters, and we may not have a happy ending. And so that's what they were trying to say. So while it is a horrible episode, and no, I don't watch it, it's a brilliant episode, and it is, in fact, I believe, the best episode of the entire series, because it was the one episode that tackled the issue that we have yet to tackle, at least a little bit. Every time we bring it up, there's people that say we don't need to bring it up, and so because of that, we fall into this vicious cycle of, we need to talk about it, no we're not. We need to talk about it, no we don't. So it's just, it's really ridiculous, but like, they tried to warn us. That was the point of that episode, is they're trying to warn us about the future. And all of their topical issues, all the topical episodes were warning us about if we're not careful, we could destroy ourselves. It's like saying the dinosaurs, went through this same thing, even though obviously they didn't. But think of it this way, if dinosaurs went through the same process and went through the same things and they died off, here's what could happen to you. So that's, I think, overall, I think that's what's so cool about that show, is that as a kid, you watch it for the characters. You watch it because you can get the action figures out of the deal, because they're funny and they say funny things, they do funny things. Earl is a hoot. The baby Sinclair obviously is the funniest kid on the show. It's a great show, but you can also look at it from the point of an adult and say, wow, that show really was trying to tell us something. It was a show with a message, but while also entertaining. And you don't see that often. I mean, you'll see that in shows that try to send a message, but that's like the whole point of the show, sending you a message in a dramatic way. But every so often, you'll get those comedic shows that actually put themselves out there and not only try to entertain you, but also give you information, vital information that you absolutely need to survive. And that's what the Dinosaurs was trying to do, was trying to explain to you how to survive in your own society and to not give up and to keep fighting for what's right. And if you don't fight for what's right, this is what could happen to you. I mean, it was all around a brilliant tactic. And, there are times when I say it's criminal that show only got 4 seasons, because it is such a great show and I love it to death. But you will find yourself getting into about like midway through season 3 and you're kind of like, okay, I get it now. Yeah, dinosaurs doing human things. We've done this for a while now. We can move on.
It's so boring.
But I do wish, in a sense, it got more seasons so that it could continue on. Like, could you imagine what that show would be like today? If they did what they did back in the 90s today, what they would be trying to teach us, it would be, I'd say there'd be a lot of people who would be upset by it. Yeah, I think you know what people I'm talking about. And then there would be those that would be like, yeah, this is very topical, this is very poignant, we needed to hear this. So it's interesting to think about how shows existed back then as opposed to today. Again, I think it's somewhat criminal. It only got 4 seasons, but it also ran its course. But I wouldn't mind a follow-up series, like what they call a soft reboot, or a continuing story where we pick up where we left off with the dinosaurs. It could be at the same time period. It could be 30 years later. It could be played off that the end of the world was a dream that Earl had, and he wakes up and everything's fine, and they just continue on, and then they get back into the topical behavior that they did on the show. But that's just my thoughts. Even if they don't bring the show back in any capacity, the 4 seasons we got of that show was crucial, and I'm really glad we got it. And I think it is one of the best TV shows that has ever been made. And if you haven't seen them before, all the episodes are on Disney Plus. I highly recommend watching it. Even try to watch the last episode, the final episode, just once at least, to get the understanding of what they were trying to talk about and what they were trying to prove in that episode. And then don't watch it again, because it is a sad episode and I don't watch it either. But that's just my 2 cents on Dinosaurs. I think it's a great show, and I'm so glad I got to grow up with it and still get to watch it on occasion. So hats off to Dinosaurs. Not a mama!